Hello there, welcome to Sports Talk. You with myself, Trevor.
And me, Mitch.
And today we're discussing the topic of the Olympics. The 1984 Los Angeles Olympics are viewed as the ushering in the commercialisation of the Olympic Games. And today we're going to consider whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, discuss the Olympic Games themselves and the advantages and disadvantages of a commercialised Olympic Games.
Yes, we are. I'm going to take the stance of it's been negative. The commercialisation has been detrimental to the Olympic Games and what they stand for, and it's lost the Olympic spirit.
But of course, it's helping countries and cities to fund the games and keep it running, really. So I think it's definitely a good thing that the Olympic Games are more commercialised. But first, probably a bit of history on the Olympic Games. So originally, the first Olympics were held in ancient Greece and can be traced back to 776 BC. The more modern games were created by Baron Pierre de Coubertin, if I pronounced that right?
Yeah, it sounds not too bad.
It's a bit of a tough name, isn't it? And his theory was to bring all the countries together to compete in the games. Just go with that.
So basically what Pierre de Coubertin did was he joined up a committee. He was the second president of the IOC, and they were able to congregate multiple countries to then engage and play in the Olympic Games.
So the modern Olympic Games started in 1896 and brought together 14 nations and 241 athletes competing in 43 events. And it was a very still amateur competition, which is very different to what we see today with the commercialised events.
And the professional athletes, for instance, your Usain Bolt is a paid athlete to compete for Jamaica in all the running events that he does. And the way that these athletes are able to be paid is majorly through the commercialisation of the sport, and how the sponsors will put money into certain countries and mostly the Olympic Games to get their brand connected with the sport and the event, and from there and onwards build a relationship from there.
And of course this started all in Los Angeles.
1984.
And it was quite an interesting one because there was only two countries that entered a bid that year, Los Angeles and New York. Well, I tend to think from a more positive point of view that without the commercialisation of sport, of the Olympics, that could have been almost the last Olympics.
There is a reason to think that, yes, but also it didn't need to change from my perspective. It has taken away from the whole spirit of the games and how much the Olympics now rely on these sponsors.
Surely though, spending more money through the games is good. For example, the London 2012 Olympics, the government spending for the Olympics provided the whole city with infrastructure upgrades they otherwise couldn't have afforded. For example, between 2006 and 2011, £1 billion annually was invested in the underground, projects including station refurbishment and track upgrading, stuff that wouldn't have happened without the incentive of the Olympics. And a good quote from the sports minister at the time, Hugh Robertson, who said it's a testament to the sound financial management of all involved. We can look back on last summer as a nation with a real sense of pride. So I think when countries like England coordinate the Olympics well, the money is put to really good use.
But adversely, you've had countries in the past struggle. Once the Olympics leave, they leave them in a debt. They've paid so much money to get this infrastructure improved for these world-class events, and they're not even used anymore. And a recent photo of the bird's nest in China, in Beijing, it's overgrown. It's not even used for sport anymore. It's just a tourist attraction. And in Athens in 2004, it's barely used, and we know how much trouble Greece is in with debt and stuff, and this could be a direct result from the 2004 Olympics.
But surely having these stadiums is good for a country. I mean, for example, the Bird's Nest is a huge stadium that's got to be perfect for something like a marquee stadium for a FIFA World Cup bid. And it's even being used to host the 2022 Winter Olympics. So I think it provides these countries with a longer lasting effect of the Olympics, which is this infrastructure that's being built. Quinyan Feng, in his thesis, who's a master of recreation and leisure, actually writes about the nostalgic value of places like the Bird's Nest for tourism. He says, adding innovative tourist attractions to the sport heritage sites is likely to expand this tourism market. So I mean, places like the Bird's Nest have extremely high tourist attraction value. It's a major landmark now. It's not just a stadium; it's a piece of history.
But okay, so if that was the case, then how does China combat the fact that they've spent so much money? Like, they've put in all this money for the event, they've made the bid, they've been successful, but why isn't the Bird's Nest being used for physical activity? Like, for instance, in Sydney 2000, there was no direct result of an increase in physical activity after the 2000 Olympics.
Well, I would think as far as encouraging a healthy lifestyle, surely the Olympics would be good for a country. I mean, it's promoting healthy lifestyles and well-being.
But the commercial partners of the Olympic Games are stuff that you would not consider as healthy food and healthy habits, with Coca-Cola being a huge sponsor of the Olympics, and McDonald's leading the way in the charge of the commercialisation of the Olympic Games.
But even with these commercial partners, surely the tourism aspect would bring plenty of money into the country. For example, London, the Olympic Village, has now been turned into housing, and so it's holiday apartments and low budget housing. I mean, this brings more money into the economy. Sydney 2000 put Australia and the city on the map. It's great for tourism. You're broadcasting your country and your state all over the world for people to see. It's essentially free advertising itself. Could the monetary value of that perhaps outweigh the commercial aspect?
You're allowing these frowned upon companies and something that we don't associate with sports activity to get in and associate themselves with the Olympics, so they can improve their brand label and brand image, just so we can have money for the Olympics and so that the Olympics still survive.
In a way, the Olympics is still very much about friendship between countries. Do you think that's just as important?
But if this is such a good thing and host cities want the event, the Olympics, they want to have it, but why do they want to have it? It's simply because they just want the economy and the tourism, and it's not to showcase the actual sport, and it goes against Dick Burton's ideology of the Olympics. It's meant to be just a gathering of people to have a competition and see who's a great athlete and who's better. And it goes against that. It's all about making money. All these countries just want the Olympics to make money.
But surely it does also bring athletes and countries together.
Not so much. I feel like the professional side of the Olympics has taken over that. There is friendships in between countries, but it goes against everything that Coubertin stood for, and these athletes are so competitive and know that the wealth of the Olympics can change their whole lives, that they're willing to do illegal substances and doping, and even the worst thing about it is that their home countries are willing to cover it up for their brand, for their image, and to save the athletes and save their own.
But surely not all athletes are drug cheats.
Well, there's been numerous accounts of multiple athletes from multiple countries. We saw the Russians kicked out of Rio 2016 for the fact that they were in cahoots with blood doping and illegal substances to improve their ability and performance. And it's bad on the athletes, and it's also bad on the countries that host. The host nations, they really want this tourism and economy to boost their country, but they spend too much to get people in, and they're worried about how the economy is going to treat them afterwards. But they've got, for instance, in Rio, one of their main stadiums, less than 10 kilometers away, you've got people living in the slums, in favelas, struggling to live, and they're not helping their own people. They're doing this so their economy's better, and it just seems detrimental to the whole country just so they can have the games there. And it's not for the Olympics purpose, it's more of a commercial approach. And Dick Coubertin said this in 1928. He said, "Almost all the stadiums built in recent years are a result of local and too often commercial interest, and not the Olympics interests at all."
But surely there needs to be some form of partnership between commercialisation and Olympics to fund it.
But how much funding is too much? How much do we need to give for these countries and for our own? In Australia, like in 2016 in Rio, Australia spent $11 million, almost $11.5 million per medal. And that's so much money to spend just on one medal for our AIS academies to produce athletes. And not all Olympic sports even won medals. Of the $332 million Australia spent on their AIS and the preparation for London 2012 and Rio 2016, only $114.5 million went to sports that did not produce a medal. So it's ridiculous amounts of money, and this is led solely by the commercialisation of the Olympics.
But without commercialisation, would we possibly have no more Olympics?
It's hard to say, but because the athletes have had it so good in recent times, why would they return to an amateur status and compete for the actual ethos of the Olympics? And it seems too far gone. It is a huge disadvantage to the Olympics and what it once stood for. Okay. And one of the commercial sponsors, McDonald's, ran a promotion for the Olympics. When the US wins, you win, and it could result in a range of free food, from a Big Mac to French fries, and even free drinks. And this sort of just goes against the whole healthy lifestyle and physical activity of the Olympics, and it's because of the commercialisation that this is happening.
It's all part of our Krusty Burger Olympic sweepstakes. Just scratch off the name of the Olympic event on your game card, and if America wins a gold medal, you win a free Krusty Burger.
And cut.
Blah! I almost swallowed some of the juice.
Welcome back to the final day of this, the 23rd Olympiad. Brought to you by Krusty Burger.
You people are pigs! I personally am gonna spit in every 50th burger.
I like those eyes.
So as a summary, we look at it, the host cities are mainly just getting involved with the Olympics for economy and tourism, and to increase their own pockets with money. And it's not because of the Olympics and what it is, and how the sport has become professional with the commercialisation. There's so much more money in it, and the athletes are willing to consider illegal methods to improve their performance just so they can make a large amount of money through the Olympics and the commercialisation.
I've got to say though, I still do disagree. I think the commercialisation brings a lot more money into the Olympics and stabilises the ability of the IOC to keep it running. You know, I think that it's a great excuse for countries to expand their infrastructure, which is, you know, good for the city that it's in for the most part. I think that it's a great tourist event as well, not just at the games, but afterwards to see the sights. And it also broadcasts your city all over the world to millions and billions of people who might want to visit, and I think it does still bring quite a lot of the countries together. So overall, still going to have to disagree with you. I think the commercialisation of sport has done the Olympics no harm, but I guess that's for everyone to have their own opinion on.
It's definitely taken away from the Olympic spirit in my mind. But that's just me having the last word. And thank you for tuning in to Sports Talk. We'll see you next time.